Okay, welcome everybody to this evening's ACY Securities webinar. And tonight's webinar is Live Forex Market Review. So let's get into things. Before we do, if you can read through the disclaimer, please everybody, anybody on our YouTube live stream, I cannot see the chat, but you're more than welcome to watch or just follow the link that I've given. You can come into the webinar room and ask questions. For those in the webinar, I've got the chat box open or the question and answer box open for questions. All right, so just give you enough time to read through the disclaimer. Of course, this evening we've got the US CPI data coming out. Big news event for the week. It's coming out at 10:30. All right, so if you don't know me, my name is Duncan Cooper. I'm the Senior Market Strategist and Trading Mentor here at ACY Securities. And I'm a full-time Forex trader. I've been trading the market now for more than 15 years and mentoring for more than 10. If you want to contact me, my email is there. It's duncan.cooper@acy.com. Through the week, you can connect with my analysis at our website, acy.com. Go to the Market News tab or our YouTube channel, ACY Securities Australia, or you can connect with me personally there on my Twitter or LinkedIn. As well, through the week, in our Telegram channel, you can connect with us there. Just contact Nathan to get access. I'll put his details in the chat a little bit later. And if you want to get access to my chartlettes and templates, then just contact Nathan too. He can organize that for you. In fact, I'll put his details in there right now. Now, he's actually on holiday for a few days, so if he doesn't get back to you straight away, then that'll be the reason why. But he'll get back to you. All right, his details are there in the chat. All right, let's get into, first of all, tonight. Let's just look at the news events coming out. There's a couple of high impact news announcements coming out. One today, one tomorrow. So for 10:30 p.m. Queensland time, New South Wales time, this is the US CPI data. We're looking at the inflation figures coming out this evening. Expecting the year on year to maybe move up, but we'll have to wait and see. Well, the market's definitely looking to this. This is going to be an indicator to see what the Fed does next. Are they going to continue raising rates? Are they going to be holding? Is there any indication that maybe they will be lowering at some point into the future? All right, their rate that they want inflation at is 2%. Okay, so we're at 3.3. We did move from 4 down to 3 the previous month, so we'll have to wait and see what that comes out as well. Tomorrow we got pound GDP monthly, month-on-month figures, and again, more inflationary figures from the US at 10:30 p.m. on Friday, the core PPI data and PPI data. So these are the ones that are going to really affect the market, the CPI and the PPI data. All right, be very aware it's going to be exceptionally volatile tonight, I guess at 10:30. I've seen the first 15-minute candle be like 100 pips high, moving up and down. So if you got tight stops, you're probably going to get stopped out. Well, especially if it goes against you. If it doesn't go against you, that's all good and fine, but be aware it's going to be exceptionally volatile. All right, with that in mind, let's get to the charts, and we'll start with the dollar index. Now, over the last week, I've been discussing the formation of maybe this area here on the weekly chart perspective to be the formation of maybe another lower top to move down. This is corrective at the moment until we take out that top. Now, we could take that top out today after the CPI data for sure, but at the moment, we might be holding here at the 79% level. It's all been sideways this week. It's been difficult trading. Nothing's breaking into a trend too much, especially on the pairs to the US dollar in any event. Are we holding there at the 79% level to start to move down? All right. That's the technical perspective. It's down, rally. Are we moving down? Of course, the fundamentals coming out tonight, and that could be in opposition to what that's saying. So we'll have to wait and see. S&P 500 is having a little bit of a sell-off at the moment. And this weekly trend here is clearly up. We're having a bit of a correction at the moment. All right. We are, if you look at the major range, maybe playing at the 79% level, but I think it's too early to tell that we're getting a major change in trend here. If we start to move down for a bit and we start to put in a lower top on the weekly chart, then maybe we're getting a significant change in trend here. At the moment, I think we're just having a pullback. And the area of support would be to watch is this area here, 4460.49, which we've been a bit short of. So that area is potentially the support area at the moment. If we break below there, maybe we're getting much more significant reversal. So this could be where support starts to come in. Do we start to, this is a slight downtrend at the moment on the daily, but does this turn back to an uptrend? Do you see a higher bottom forming? That's what I'll be looking at the moment. Is that just a 1 or 2 week pullback? Now, of course, if inflation comes out high tonight, we'll see the stock markets fall because they'll be anticipating higher interest rates, okay? And vice versa, if inflation falls, the stock market won't be expecting high interest rates, and that should see stock markets move up. All right, let's get into, first of all, we'll go through the Euro pairs. Now, it's been rather range bound this week. I did put out on Tuesday to watch 109.43 to be support, and we dipped below a little bit, but ultimately we got support at 109.43 to move up. Now, if I go to the day chart, you can see that for the most of the week, we've been trapped between day supports and weekly resistance. Higher time frame weekly trend is up, and we are actually putting in a higher bottom here. We don't have a higher top yet, so we may well be forming, drop this to the weekly chart, we may be forming a higher bottom here to move up, okay? Which is the opposite look to what I was discussing on the dollar index. Are we forming a lower top there on the weekly chart of the dollar index? So we may be just turning up here, some form of left shoulder, head, right shoulder forming here. All right. But as the news event comes out later in the day, we're actually already above 110.12, which is weekly resistance. So there's a possibility that, this pair could drop. If it drops, I will be watching down here at 109.43. That's only 70 pips away. It can easily get down there today when the news event comes out. So if it does drop, I would be watching down here for support. If it flies north, well, there won't be any chance of getting in because you already need to be long really to benefit from the news driving it north, because as soon as the market releases its data, it's either going to drop or price is going to fly. So things to consider, if you can't get long because the market just flies up, then what you need to consider over the next couple of trading days is, do we get a spike up? If we do, does then 110.12, which has been resistance, does that now move to support? So let's say price does fly up today. Over the next couple of trading days, we may well then seek out 110.12 to be support for then a move up. This week we've been, and last week, dipping below 109.43, but ultimately we've been getting support down there. So we might be seeing a shift now above 110.12 and 110.12 to be support over the coming week. Okay. Euro yen. Now, I've been watching, I put this out on Telegram the other day to see whether we could fail here. But at the moment, with the euro moving up ahead of the news event today, and this is pushing the euro yen above these highs. So we may be breaking out. The day is still young. We can be above by 50 pips. That's pretty much what we're above there at the moment. But by the end of the day, we can most definitely be below. All right, so it does look like we may be breaking above those highs at the moment, but wait, this moving above these highs where we failed 3 times at this level, this is all stops going off. Sellers are wrong. Retail traders are buying on the break. We need a solid close above here today so that can maybe start to think that this area is broken. If we reject that today, then it's game on for a reversal. So we'll just have to wait and see how things bring. It's worth just having a look at the higher time frames so you know where we're at. This is a monthly chart. We're very high up. All right. We're actually heading towards the next major levels at 162.42, this high back in 1998. All right. So at the moment, a lot of room from where we're at to that high. So can the breakout hold, or does it become a false breakout? It's looking quite strong at the moment. All right, last time we held here though, we had a significant reversal. So it was worth watching here to see whether we failed. Of course, at the moment we haven't, but we may fail by the end of the day or over the next couple of trading days. If over the next couple of trading days we start to close below that level, then of course the failure scenario comes into play. At the moment, it is looking a little bit more like failure isn't happening. So it's overextended. If you look at the 4-hour structure here, we've more than extended beyond the 127. I was looking at the resistance to 127 for maybe a rejection below, but it's not occurring yet. But this is in the profit-taking phase of the upward move on the 4-hour chart. So if you want to get long, you want to be monitoring for the next pullback. All right. Now, really, if it topped right there and we get a 62, if this traces down to 62, well, we're now false breaking these highs, which isn't great for a buyer. So what we really need to see is that you could monitor a pullback using the fib, depending on where the high comes in. But ultimately, if we are now moving to the long side above this major resistance level, a pullback should really hold now. Last month's high here at 158.03 now. You just have to monitor to see whether that can pull back and be support over the coming days. KC, you're asking me, how long do I usually hold a trade for? Oh, it depends where I get in terms of the structure. So for example, I'll give you an example of the Aussie dollar. Now, I'm not actually in this, but this would be a prime example of a trade that I might take. If I was taking this trade up here for the double top, well, I would still be in that trade now down here. And that's been moving down maybe a good, at least 3 weeks. So I can be in a trade 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on what the higher time frame pattern is. Or I can be in a trade just for a day. It depends what I'm seeing and what I'm trying to achieve from a pair and what I'm seeing, okay? All right, back to the Euro yen. So the Euro yen at the moment, this is very high up at the end of the current move. So don't have the fear of missing out. You really need to watch for a pullback. This is the clear level now that's been broken. Look for this to be a pullback area for support, okay? And we can pull back to that area today quite clearly. It's only 50 pips away. And, if we can't hold above this area now or on top of it, start to look for a reversal, okay? Euro pound, it's continuing its uptrend. Tuesday, I was discussing this pulling back to the 62 in-day support. Now, it hasn't been able to do it, but you can quite clearly see a higher bottom is forming here for a move up to test this resistance area potentially, okay? Now, last week, we had a lot of wicks up here as it was approaching the 86.58 level. So that's going to be the level to watch. If we get there, can we move above, or does it simply reverse back down? So at the moment on the 4-hour, it's back into an uptrend here. Until we test this area, what we might see is I would be monitoring for a pullback at the moment. You don't want to be a buyer up here. You want to look for a pullback. So can we get a pullback to the 62 or the 79% level for the next swing up to trade up to this area? That's assuming that the market will give you that swing, okay? But at the moment, we know we're coming up very close to where we were failing last week. So this isn't where you want to be buying. Trading in line with the day chart trend, you want to look for a dip down the 4-hour chart. So can we get a dip to move up? Resistance is quite clearly 86.58. So if this doesn't pull back and gets up to there over the next 24 hours without pulling back, up here, I would look for a lower time entry maybe to trade down at the resistance level. So we couldn't get there last week. Put in a lower top there on the 4-hour to move down. So this is the clear area to watch. Last week's high up to resistance as a failure point. All right. Now pound dollar. It's very range bound at the moment. It has actually once more this week. It was actually fractionally short. When we were talking on Tuesday, we were looking at the 127 area as a deep pullback area. And I was saying, I don't know whether we could get back down to weekly support this week. We got down very close to weekly support. We got down to 26.83 and 26.79 was weekly support. So quite clearly, if I move to my weekly chart, that's the higher bottom. We are maybe putting in another higher bottom here. Definitely holding above weekly support. All right, this week we haven't been able to quite get down to that level this week. So that's just telling you that the buyers are there, prepared to trade at or slightly above that support level. And this little day down here could be a minor higher bottom forming. And we could be moving above 127.97 and moving back up the range. All right. Of course, the reversal that we may be seeing at the moment can get destroyed when the CPI data comes out, but it is looking like we may be getting a reversal. Or even if the CPI data comes out, which is US dollar maybe strength as it gets released, buyers are clearly watching 126.79 down here. All right, now the 4-hour chart is quite choppy, but quite clear. That's where we got support on Friday. That's where we got support on Tuesday. And, you know, we have higher bottom to that bottom, and that's a higher bottom to that bottom. That's a lower top to that top and that top. So it's getting a little bit mixed. There's a bit of a triangle pattern forming here of sorts. So I get my right tool as the market waits for the CPI data, okay? With the weekly trend being up, and I don't know which way this is going to go when the data gets released, but I will be watching. My favorite approach would be to watch for a drop down support and then the support hold for a move up in line with the weekly trend, which is quite clearly up. All right. Now we might get a change of the weekly trends. We would need to break below this area here to change the weekly trend, and that's not occurring at the moment. So until that occurs, I am just favoring the weekly trend as the bias. So do we come down to here? Now, there's also the expectation you should have is we could come down to support and hold there, or we could come up just to the resistance level, 127.97 and hold, and then once more trade down. All right, you can see up here the sellers are holding, and down here the buyers are holding. And whilst we've got a major news event coming out, we are in August, which is often a very range-bound month because in the Northern Hemisphere, a lot of people are on holiday. I could be wrong, but looking at the news items on Forex Factory, I couldn't see this month an FOMC or a Eurozone interest rate decision. So if we don't have interest rate decision coming from the US and the Eurozone this month, there aren't those news items either to drive the market. So we could, you know, be relatively range bound for the whole month, but we'll have to wait and see what today's data brings. Okay, but that's just stuck in a range there at the moment. So look to the outer edges, but the dominant trend from the weekly perspective is up. So if we're going to break anywhere, I would anticipate maybe a break to the upside. Pound yen's moving up. Okay. And I just want to drop into the dollar yen. The dollar yen's moving up today as well. So we're seeing some of the pairs to the US dollar moving up and the dollar yen moving up. And that's what's causing the yen crosses to move up, like the pound yen. Dollar yen's moving up, so yen's getting weaker. Pound dollar, the pound dollar, whilst it's in a range here, has moved up today, and that's causing then, strength on the pound yen. So like the euro yen's broken out, potentially, this may break out up here. All right, it's been rather consolidatory for a good maybe month now. It's tried to move down, it's tried to move up, it's dropped back down. But we do have a higher bottom, higher top scenario here. But this could come up once more and fail. So now as a buyer, you don't want to be buying too close to your 184 level, which is your weekly resistance level. All right, so in a perfect world, it would be nice just to see, if we're going to continue up and through, there's the 4-hour range at the moment. It would be just nice to, if we are moving up and through, and that's your bias, is does the market offer you a pullback to a 62.79% level that you could buy a dip on for the move up to test, and can we move through? All right, that would be the scenario for the buyer side at the moment, if that can occur. Now, that might not occur because the market might just go screaming through here after the CPI data, but the other equation for today could be that the market simply comes up to 184, might spike through a bit and wants to hold. All right. If the CPI data comes out and it's US dollar negative, we're probably going to see the dollar yen sell off. And then this would be the same. So if I drop back to the dollar yen a moment, we're very high up here within the, we had large selling here. We've been reclaiming all that back, and we're kind of holding at the point where we started the sell-off. So if the CPI data comes out weak tonight for the US dollar is going to weaken, and this is going to move down. So if that moves down strongly, like it did here, we're probably going to see the pairs to the yen all moving in the same vein. So we could see on the pound yen a spike through this area when the news comes out, but if the dollar yen heavily sells off, this will probably start to move down, and we may see a double top form up here over the next few trading days. All right, so levels to watch. All right, Aussie yen. Let's get rid of the daily levels, because really this is just operate on weekly levels at the moment. It had 4 days testing weekly support. We've got the weekly chart, this weekly high here. 4 days testing down here, and now we're moving back up. So we may be moving back up to 95.73, which is weekly resistance. And maybe we're just going to be trapped between those two price points through the month. Okay, as I've been saying on the monthly chart, we may be having a lower top forming here for a head and shoulder pattern. And then maybe, as we move back to the weekly chart, that is a lower top to that top. But of course, we're getting support on this top. So there may be a bias to the downside in general terms, but that bias to the downside could take several weeks before it decides it wants to break as well, especially if we're in a slow month of the year. So at the moment, clear support is coming in at 93.03. So if we revisit 93.03 at any point over the next week, you should be watching that for still potential support, because it clearly is. All right. Now, at the moment, I would be monitoring up here. With the weekly trend showing a lower top area here to the last weekly top up here, we may just come up, we could come up to the top of the range, or we may just come up to the high end of the range to put in a lower top, to have another go trading down to 93. Okay. So just from a positional play, I would be looking up here for the opportunity to get short at the moment. It all really depends what the Aussie dollar does, because the Aussie dollar has been trading down nicely, but it is getting a little bit overextended and down to support. So if support clearly comes in on the Aussie dollar, then this is probably coming up all the way up to 93.73 for a test. So if you start to see that, you could then be dropping down to your 4-hour chart and monitoring these ranges for a simple continuation pattern to the upside. At the moment, this 4-hour is in an uptrend. So you could be dragging these up as price moves up and then look for your pullback on the 4-hour fib. All right. I would be anticipating that we're moving up there. So if you want to trade up that way, look for a pullback and then look into this area for a reversal down. Now, I just wanted to measure. There's only 150 pips to get up to there. You know, come the end of the week, could actually be up there by the end of the week, depending on what the CPI data does tonight. And then you could be looking back up here for the opportunity to trade down. All right, Aussie dollar. All right, so we have this big dominant double top in play. I've drawn the fib from high to low. I can see that we're at the 127 extension. The target for the double top is always the 200% level. It's only a target. We may not get there, and that's around about the 63 level. All right, at the moment, it is struggling a little bit, and we are contained in a range here through the last 2 weeks. We're holding this week below this weekly level of old support, 65.64, and we're holding on top of 65.14 daily support here. We have been below the 65 level, but then buyers came in. So buyers are there underneath 65 at the moment. We're going to need a good CPI data release, I think, for this to move below 65. But in the short term, the last 2 trading days are getting held at the 65.64 level. You can see the 2 highs of the previous 2 days, a little bit above 65.64, this weekly resistance level, but then wanting to sell down. I was discussing that in yesterday's webinar. And I put out on Telegram today that we are range bound, and I've been monitoring this little range here. That was a drop down yesterday. So that drop down yesterday, there's yesterday's trading down. That's yesterday's high. So low, and we failed. We did trade above the weekly resistance level for a little bit, but ultimately we failed there to trade down. So I put this out on Telegram this morning. Would we come up to the 79% level, the weekly resistance level? There's my colored area put in this morning. Come up in there and fail. Now we have failed there at the moment. It has pulled back a little bit. You could still be watching for a further test and failure. And later in the day, you could be watching to see what price does around here. Right now, the fact that this has withdrawn down and maybe getting a little bit of support here, I wouldn't entertain trading this now because the CPI data is coming out, not too far away. It's only 3 hours away. This is unlikely to move too far in 3 hours. I will just be watching this area of resistance later in the day. Do we spike up? We could trade up a little bit, but then do we ultimately fail here to trade back down the range? That's what I'll be watching for in that area later in the day. At the moment, we can clearly see that, yeah, the market's been pinned there, but we do have that data release coming out. So with no data, we're clearly holding at 65.64. Okay, with data coming out, we'll have to wait and see what happens. All right, getting into New Zealand yen. Been pinned all week to my day chart at this top over here. This is a weekly top. And I said on Tuesday, if I move to my weekly chart, last week we had a significant rejection. So this top and this top over here, which is E733, these are monthly tops. And we're not able to hold above those monthly tops. And we've fallen down to weekly support, come up, and we have had a week down, so we were potentially forming a lower top here on the weekly chart. And we've been holding all week, coming up, testing this weekly top here, 87.30. So maybe we're going to be holding here to continue down. All right. You can see we have tried to trade above today, but Tuesday and today we're trading at the level and holding at the level. So this is actually the range of last week's candle. Now we might just come to the 62 level and then start to turn over and close back below 87.30. So if we keep closing back below 87.30, I would be starting to anticipate that we're maybe forming a lower top in this area on the day chart. And I would be looking for a move back down to the downside. Okay, so keep watching 87.30. Do we see maybe a bit of a 4-hour structure change here to break that low? And then do we see a rally back up to then continue down in the direction of last week's move? Okay. Or I might just leave that on there. We'll see what that looks like next week. New Zealand dollar, very similar to the Aussie dollar. It's formed some kind of double top or triple top up here. It's just on support, like the Aussie's a little bit on support, but you know, are these two patterns that we're seeing on the Aussie dollar and New Zealand dollar, these two pairs are highly correlated. Are these double tops going to run out to fruition? Using that range to then project your 200% level down for the double top price projection, that's down at 55.85. And we haven't broken the midpoint yet. And this is actually a weekly low here at 60.50, which we're sitting on. Okay. Can we break below that level to come down and test 59.84? Now, it's very similar to the Aussie, although it's looking a little bit weaker on the candles at the moment because it's at support where the Aussie's been moving back up to its resistance level. But this may just, you know, come back up to your 61.20 level and maybe eventually start to break down through here. All right. Trend is clearly down here. It's just a question of if you want to get short, you don't want to be selling at the bottom of a move. You want to look for some form of rally. Okay. So a perfect rally scenario would be back up there at 61.20. So you can watch 61.20 today. It's only 60 pips away. A lot of the time on CPI data day, the first 15-minute candle after news release is like 100, can be 100 pips high. So this can easily get back up to 61.20 today and then start to want to hold and then turn back over. So that's what I'll be watching there at the moment. All right, dollar Canadian. I'm just watching two ranges here at the moment, the larger monthly range and then a smaller range. So if I go to the monthly chart, there's the monthly range, which is lower top, lower bottom. We're just coming back up this range at the moment, about halfway up. And then there's this range here, depending on which range the market's operating to. Now, if this is the range that we're operating to, I'm just going to drop the day chart. Okay, if that's the range, what you can see is that we've broken above this top, which is a weekly top. As we got high up in this range, we obviously rejected on Tuesday. But what I'm noticing is that today we're getting support on the weekly top here. Okay, so we may still be able to move a little bit higher up in the range yet. I'll be watching today if we stab down to 133.86, that could offer support to put in a higher bottom here to continue the move up. This is in an uptrend on the day chart within the range that I've drawn out. I can see the start of an imbalance from over here. So we may be moving up. We may be getting support here or find support later in the day at the 33.86 level. It's going to drop to the 4-hour chart. You see, come down already today and rejected. So watch that 133.86 level. And you can see a bit of a range there as well. There's a 62 level there with your weekly support level there. So watch for another test of that area today. If it can occur, you might see it start to hold there and trade back up. Now, so the bias is to the upside going that way at the moment. And I will be watching with that imbalance up in this area for a possible failure. You know, later in a week to 2 weeks ahead, depending on, you know, if we're moving up this way, this would be a failure area to watch because the monthly trend is down. That's just corrective. So it's finding an area where it's maybe going to come up to put in the lower top of the monthly chart. This is your monthly range here. And the 62 level of that monthly range, so from that high to low, is at the top of the imbalance there. So, you know, potentially we might be getting support now on top of that weekly top, 133.86, for a move up into this area here. And then that area could be a good area to watch for a potential reversal. Okay, so will we see that 33.86 level tested once more today, maybe when the news comes out? And does it offer you an opportunity to get long? Okay, and that fib that I drew on the 4-hour chart was from this low. So that's a minor higher bottom on the daily here to that top there. And that's a 62% level in there too. So that's a good level to watch. All right, dollar franc. This is actually the range of last week. I'm on the 4-hour chart here as I'm just discussing this range. You can see 87.80 to the 79% fib level. All these 4-hour tops in that area, all holding. Okay, so we could be topping out there. Now, from a high time perspective, monthly chart, that low just there, 87.57, that's the low that we're underneath. And we've been trying to trade back above and we keep getting rejected and dropping back below. So we're seeing, you know, the market wanting to hold below that level maybe to continue the move down. And we're just a little bit above this monthly low here at 86.99. Weekly trend here, you can see it's lower bottom. It's just been coming back up to maybe search for a lower top. It's been a bit fraction short of that area, 88.20 to be resistance. I've got a fraction short there. 2-day chart. It's maybe just turning to the downside here, putting in, you know, it's been moving up, trying to move above the monthly level of resistance at 87.57. Not quite getting to that resistance level there. And now it might be putting in that lower top here to turn back down to the downside. And as I was saying on the 4-hour chart, it's flying at the 79% level today. I think the obvious level to watch, if we do stab up, maybe it's already turned down, but if we do stab up, this is the clear area of resistance been forming over the last week. 87.80. Approximate area. Okay, that's 79% fib level. You might see a revisit of that level, but if it holds there once more, expect it's going to be maybe turning back down to the downside. Okay, it might not offer, you know, we might not get a rally option there. It may just drop straight down. You may have already needed to take a position for that. It is looking a little bit like, you know, this is the inverse of the euro dollar. Euro dollar is moving up, the dollar franc's moving down. Okay, and the dollar index is moving down ahead of the news event. Now, this is just very similar to the dollar franc picture. Go to the day chart. That looks identical to the dollar index. All right, so if it gets friendly, it might come back up to 87.80. That's the area to watch on the dollar franc. That's where resistance is. That's where the sellers are holding the market for a potential move down. All right, dollar yen. Now, there's always the equation with the dollar yen or the pairs to the yen. And the Bodge looks at the dollar yen and looks at the price. And when it gets to certain high levels, they start getting twitchy, saying that the dollar yen's too high, and they will come in and intervene. Now, the last intervention potentially was this move down, where the Bodge was getting a bit twitchy, and of course we've moved back up to the area. So, are we going to hold here and fail? I will be just giving this a days. See what happens today. If we get a very negative candle today, that would probably maybe suggest that we may be seeing a move back down the range. All right, now from a weekly chart perspective, we're actually in a clear uptrend, and we're getting clear support down here at 137.90. Now we may just stay in some form of a range. We could be getting support here and finding resistance up here, and just stay rather range bound here, where from an interest rate perspective, the dollar yen is a carry trade, but from the Bodge's perspective, once price gets too high, it wants to come in and intervene. So we may just see quite a range bound market in this area, or we could move back up. This is the that high here formed on the weekly chart is where we broke down, form that imbalance there to trade all the way down here. So this area up here, that high point there, is really where the Bodge decided, okay, things are really too high here. We're coming in and pushing this down. So we're getting back into that zone area where that occurred. And if we measure that range, we're not up to the 79% level yet, but we're in between the 62 and the 79. So it's just it is where you could definitely get selling pressure coming in if the Bodge really wants to intervene once more. So you just need to understand that. So at the moment, though, we are in an uptrend. Can we move up to test 145.06? And from a buyer's perspective, if you want to buy this for a move up, just simplistically, this isn't where you want to buy. You should have been buying by now. You should have been buying maybe 2 days ago, not buying at the high of the move. So at the moment, it's difficult to be a buyer, and it's not signaling an opportunity to sell at the moment. We'll just have to wait and see what the CPI data brings out, but just being aware of where we're at. We're at the point where we last broke down. That high point there was where we got that massive drop. So we're definitely in the sell zone of the pair at the moment. So it's just worth monitoring to see what happens today. Do we get a clear rejection? If we do, you may need to start to put on the process of looking for a short if we get a nasty rejection today. All right, so I'm just monitoring to see what happens. Does it give a clear signal of a rejection? If it does, then if we head back to the euro yen at the moment, which is above its resistance, 50 pips above its resistance at the moment, we may see this be a false move above. Okay, same with the pound yen. This movement up to its weekly 184 level, we could see a false break there, especially if the dollar yen decides, okay, we're going all the way back down the range. So not trading any of these yens on its own. Look at the whole group of the yen pairs, especially the dollar yen. What's the dollar yen telling you? Is the dollar yen showing strength? If the dollar yen continues to show strength, these other pairs to the yen are going to be continuing above their highs of the year in all probability. Okay. All right. Let's have a look at gold. Gold's continuing down. It's just trading down to its lower level of potential weekly support here. All right. It is putting in a lower top. all right, to want to maybe move down. But what we really know, we need to see a move below this area because 4 weeks here, 1, 2, 3, 4. We were trying to trade below. See the wicks on the candles. We were trying to trade below there for a while, but we couldn't hold below there. So this is a dangerous area for the sellers at the moment because it's where the buyers took control last time. All right, so don't be surprised to see 1916, even down to approximately 1900 to be support for a movement back up. Now, there's a minor 4-hour top here. Sorry, there's a minor day chart top here. So this is the most immediate range that we've been moving down and forming. So I wouldn't sell into that level there, but you could monitor. So that top I'm talking about would be here. Let me just double check. That's correct. Right, I would be monitoring this range at the moment, monitoring a pullback to 62 to 79% area. Can it form another lower top to then maybe be able to break below 1916? Okay. All right, so you can monitor that. Does it come up? And put it in the lower top. All right, any questions before we wrap things up? Of course, we've got the CPI data coming out later in the day, and the market's just waiting for that. So getting all your levels set. It's like I said on Tuesday, if you had your levels set for the non-farm payroll event on the Friday just gone, and if you weren't with me on Tuesday, I was just showing you that, on the likes of the Eurodollar, for example, that's your day support level here. This is where the non-farm employment figures came out, but we did dip below and start to deal at 109.43, or you started to see support coming in at 109.43, your day support level. And then, knowing that, there was maybe an opportunity to then trade up. So having your levels in, because price can spike a long way or dip down to a level and then hold. And if you've got your levels there, then you can make a decision. All right. And it's not a stretch out of the stretch today. We're only at the moment probably 80 pips away from support. And depending on what the news brings tonight, while we're 72 pips away from support at the moment, we can easily be down at 109.43 within the first 5 minutes of the CPI data release. But then does it hold there? Because if it does, there may be another opportunity to trade all the way back up. So you have to have your levels in, because where price is now isn't necessarily where price will be when the data release comes out. Okay, so have the levels set, because then you can start to monitor your favorite pairs and see what happens. And guarantee you now, where price is now is not where price will be in the first 5 minutes of when the CPI data comes out. But knowing where the levels are, you may see an opportunity to trade. And it was also very similar on the pound dollar. On the job figures, I just need to refresh my memory. All right, there it was. There's one. I've just squashed the 50-minute chart in, but there was weekly supports. All right, that is today chart. 1, 2, 3, 4. This day here. That was Friday. It came down to weekly support from over here. Traded a few pips below and then traded all the way up. All right, so that's just proving the point that if you got the levels in, that was this drop down here. If you've got your levels in, you may look for an opportunity to trade up from the key level. All right, so pound dollar could easily get down to 126.79 again today, and does it offer support? Got a question in support and resistance zone. How do you identify major zones from minor? You can't identify major zones from minor zones. You can only identify minor zones from major zones. You can't get a major zone from a minor zone because it's top down. All right. And to put that in perspective, so this pound dollar chart here, this is a major support level. It's a weekly level. Okay. Now to come up with a minor level from this major level, you could be drawing a fib across this range that's formed from the major level, and then a minor level so the major level of support at the moment is still 126.79, but that needs to be drawn on top of that top there and dragged across. But then a slightly more minor level would be down here at 127.01 because it's a 79% fib of the range. And then if we drop down to the 15-minute chart, you'll see that 79% level, 127.01, is where, it's 1 pip above the figure. So I would have what I would call a good level of potential support. They could come in down there at 12700. Okay, so that level just there. But a stronger level would be down there at 126.79. And I'm getting asked, but am I not going to draw every support and resistance line? I only focus for support and resistance, I only focus on weekly, daily, and 4-hour. I don't draw them in on my 1-hour chart, highs and lows, and I don't draw them in on my 50-minute chart, highs and lows. All right, so I'm using the major levels, and then I can come up with more minor levels from those levels. Okay. Okay, so you're asking me, can I show you what we would look for as a confirmation that price has reached to go back down after we've reached our 79% fib level? I mean, go back, in this example, would be go back up. So if we got back down to the 79% level here today, then depending on how volatile price action is, let's say today we came down here. Okay. This will be a potential support level. Then what I'll be looking for is, let's say price comes down. Okay. And just for an explanation, because we don't have price action here at the moment, is let's assume that this is the price action coming down here. All right. Let's assume that this top is actually this top over here. And, price comes down, and let's just assume for an explanation that your support level's here. All right. So price has come down to your support level. Then what I will be looking for then here is, once price comes to the support level I'm watching, is does price start to reverse? So then I would look for, does price give me a trend line break to start to show that it wants to move to the upside? So I could be buying here, putting my stop below this low, and then I'm waiting to see, does price action want to turn to the upside? All right. So I'm coming up with a level that I'm watching, and then I need a setup at the level to confirm that maybe that level is going to hold. All right. Does that help you? Hopefully it does. All right. Now, at the moment, with the news coming out at 10:30, I'm not looking for a precise level. So, okay, so you're saying you're not understand. So let's take an example on the EURAUD this week, where I was looking at, let's just tidy things up here. On this particular day, so I was looking at Tuesday, so you can go to your own charts. It's this day here. Tuesday, the 8th of August here. All right, a level I was watching was the 109.43 level, which was this day support level here. So we move to the 4-hour chart. This low here is that 109.43 level. And I was watching to see whether this level would offer support. And in the webinar, I drew a fib from there to there to show you that there was a 79% level there too. So I was discussing this area here as a level that could be support that day. All right. So first of all, I'll be waiting to see if price comes to the level. Then I would be looking at my 15-minute chart to see what price does when we get to that level. All right. So this is the day in question. Price was coming down, comes to 109.43. It actually trades 1 pip short of the 79% level. Sorry, 79% levels here. I just want to double check something. All right, I've got 2 levels there. Let's get rid of that fib. All right, back to the 15-minute chart. All right, so there's a 109.43 level. There's a 79% level. And price is coming down. Now, if I was just using a trend line break to the upside to prove to myself that, okay, support is coming in and maybe price is moving to the upside, my trend line break occurs here. So in this area here, I could start to be determining, okay, I think price is now moving to the upside with a trend line break after hitting my support area. So I could be looking to be a buyer in here, putting my stop below the low that got formed as we rejected the support area that I was monitoring, and then I'll wait and see if price wants to move up. Okay. Now, of course, this is in hindsight, but I did discuss that area on Tuesday. And if you're then looking for a reversal from that area, you can see that price moved up from that area. All right. So, okay, so hopefully that helps you. All right. So again, with the levels I've been discussing today, when the news comes out tonight, price may move down to a level or up to a level, but then you're looking for price to start to show you that it's going to reverse back the other way and what you're going to use for your trigger. And you can be just looking for a trend line break, assuming that price offers that and doesn't move too quickly. All right. Any final questions? Right, can you say thank you? All right, everybody. So be careful tonight when the CPI data comes out. It's going to be highly volatile. Everybody wants to be in and make money when it maybe spikes one way or the other with the news. If it's if you've got an upward bias to maybe the euro US dollar, you'd love to be in if it's going to spike up 100 pips, but you don't want to be in if it spikes down 100 pips. So with that in mind, don't have the fear of missing out. Annie, you want me to look at the Euro Aussie? So I'll have a quick look at that before we finish up. All right, I think we may have looked at this one before, but I think I said we're at 168.27's resistance, which was where we're at. Now the monthly trend is up, but of course it needs to navigate that level. It's almost got 168.27. All right, so 168.27, which is pretty much where we're close to. Now that's in a monthly uptrend, but clearly it needs to navigate that level. The weekly trend is up. You've also got weekly resistance there that we're just holding above, 67.86. All right. Right, so all trends are up at the moment there, Annie. If you're not already long, it's not an area to get long into because clearly it's resistance. And clearly, if you are long, and it starts to fail there. I mean, a day and a half ago, with that rejection there, you would have thought, okay, are we failing there? And we could still be failing there, because I'm sure if we drop to the 4-hour chart, that movement back up there is probably a 79% level, which it is. And that's seeing a bit of selling pressure there. So, you know, if you're long, oh, you're sorry, so you're thinking of going short. Yeah, I mean, it's an area where it's looking like it's maybe shorting for sure. It'll, you know, although, you know, if the euro dollar is moving up, which the euro dollar, you know, if we just look at the euro dollar and the Aussie dollar side by side, the euro dollar is moving up potentially at the moment, showing some strength to the US dollar today. Whereas, you know, the Aussie is maybe a little bit weaker. Now, I know there's a negative 4-hour candle there at the moment, but on the day, you know, euro to US dollar is moving up. The Aussie to US dollar is a little bit, it has been moving up, but it's a little bit weaker. So then with that in mind, you know, if we keep seeing consistent euro US dollar strength and the Aussie dollar isn't keeping up, then the euro Aussie is going to move up, isn't it? So I can see why you're looking for a short, but you know, maybe you need to see at least another negative candle close in that area before thinking about it, because that, you know, if we have a day up today, if we take out the high of yesterday, this little bottom here is going to be another higher bottom, and it could be eroding through there to continue up. I mean, that's in an uptrend. It's just at a level of resistance, and it's asking the question, are we going to hold there at the moment? I think you need a bit more of a reversal showing at the moment before maybe thinking of shorting, but of course it's up to you at the end of the day. For me, I think seeing some euro strength, you know, today. Euro dollar's moving up. That euro yen, for example, has broken above. You know, if that remains above there and the euro dollar moves up to there, up today as well, I think the euro Aussie may move through there. Well, I need another day to have a look at that. All right, I've got a few more things coming in. Thank you, Steve. Mark, you're saying, could we use the Bollinger Bands to trade the CPI, say on the 1 hour, 15 minute? Yeah, you could, but you'd have to wait a few candles, I think, past the, you know, on CPI day over many months, the 50-minute candle's been like 100 pips high. So if you're using, say, Bollinger Bands on the 50-minute chart at the moment, and then you get a 100-pip candle, how's that going to work with the Bollinger Bands? Because you're going to be you're going to be massively above or massively below the bounce. Same on the 1 hour chart. So I don't know if that would really work. All right. It all depends how big a reaction you get, but that I can, you know, almost guarantee that they've probably the range for the first couple of candles will be in the range of about 100 pips in all probability. So I don't know if Bollinger Bands will really tell you anything. You're either going to break above strongly or breaking below strong in the Bollinger Band. So I don't know if that will really work. Azee asked me, can I recommend an index trade for you? Or can I recommend an index trader for you? No, I don't know any index traders. So no, I can't. Sorry about that. All right, I think covered all the questions. So thanks very much, everybody. Coming up next week, before I leave you, next Tuesday with more analysis on the webinar front. And on Wednesday, I'm going to go through a trade setup called the swing point break. So whilst I showed you maybe a little bit of setup idea with the trend line break, I'm going to be showing you a different setup called the swing point break that you could be using to prove to yourself that maybe price is trading up from support or trading down from resistance. Okay, so that's coming up on Wednesday. All right, that's what's coming up early in the week from me. All All right, everybody, have a great week. Have a great weekend. Stay safe wherever you are, and look forward to seeing you next time.